everyone. My name is Dan Richard. I'm the director of the Office of Faculty Enhancement. And today we're going to talk about student test anxiety and how we can help our students deal with that. And this is Andy King. He's the director of the Counseling Center here at UNF. And he and I have had some conversations about this and thought it would be good to share with faculty and some strategies and ideas and how you can help your students. And so with that, I'll turn that over to Andy.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a licensed psychologist, and I have worked as a psychologist in college mental health for the last 20 years. And so I've enjoyed doing this and am pretty excited to do this with you guys now. So one of the things I like to start off with is it has been a while since we've been in the shoes of our students. It's been so long that we may not even feel as anxious as our students may feel from time to time. For our students, it's kind of the opposite. For some of them, the freshmen obviously is very new. They're paying to be here, kind of a flip on that. It is completely unfamiliar. We hope that if they came here for a camp when they were in high school or did something earlier, that they got some familiarity. For the most part, most of our students aren't familiar with the entire campus. They come here with a sense of sometimes excitement, sometimes dread, sometimes that there's, well, crap, I don't know what to do with my life, so I'm going to go to college, you know. So there's different motivational levels. But one of the things that we're going to all have in common is this opportunity to be challenged. And with that comes our physical body. Unfortunately, our brains can't just walk around any old place they want to go without the arms and the legs and the heart and all that other fun stuff. So I'm going to steal one of those. Good thing I brought 10.
Yeah.
So that's what it feels like. So I want to talk to you a little bit about why that is. So physiologically, humans have been walking around in their current design for about 40,000 years. Basically, biologists and those who study evolution are pretty sure that genetically we really haven't changed in 40,000 years, which is a blink, obviously, in time when you consider how long life has been around. So consequently, things have changed culturally, things have changed intellectually, cognitively, tremendously. We are not moseying around, kind of looking for food, gathering it and eating it, and maybe running into another human, but more likely running into another kind of animal than maybe a bunch of humans. So things are very different. But our bodies really aren't. For those of you who are not people who study the brain, there is structures in our brain, which is the big chunk of our central nervous system. But if you can imagine, there is the oldest part of our brain, usually we refer to it as the hindbrain. And on top of that is the midbrain. And on top of that is all this lovely neocortex, which is really what makes us humans. And this big frontal area of our prefrontal lobes especially makes us human. We share a lot of it with our primate friends. But the amygdala, which is really no larger than the size of an almond, is what we call a highly myelinated structure in the midbrain. Okay? Any electrical engineering people? Okay, well, basic electricity. If you have a couple of wires and they're connected to a power source, do we touch them? Not usually. We're looking for a little insulation. I'll touch it if it's insulated. Well, that's kind of how our brains are. part of our brain is well insulated, highly myelinated. There's a sheath of fat around these neural circuits. And as we know in electricity, the current flows faster if the wire is insulated. And the structures in the hindbrain and the midbrain have that insulation. When you get farther out, the neocortex, we refer to as the gray matter, right? Everybody usually remember that. That's because it's not myelinated. And the reason why it's not myelinated is we couldn't think and learn as fast as we do if it were. That gray matter allows for those neurons to connect with each other much easily because there's no insulation to get in the way. Which is great because they can be very intricate and complex. It is this part of our brain that creates, whether it's a piece of art, a new machine, a book, whatever. But that process is relatively slow compared to what happens in the hind and the midbrain. The amygdala was a little structure that got developed and we share with most of the other animal species. And it's the part of the brain that helps us react very quickly. So if you're running around the forest and you hear a noise, and it's not a good noise, you're immediately alerted to act. Your body prepares itself. Most of us have heard of fight or flight. This is a very normal thing. It's a hardwired process that our bodies come with. It's part of the original package. Everybody gets one.
Is that like when you jump before you know why you did?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, you're pre-programmed.
Okay. I have a question. Just want to be clear. Is the myelination conducive to the speed of our electronic fire, or non-conducive?
It's very conducive to speed. Right.
Okay, and it's the low and the hindbrain that are myelinated?
And the rest of the central nervous system from here down.
Okay, it's all myelinated.
Right, because if I want to send a signal to my foot from my brain, that's actually a tremendous distance to travel when you consider it's made up of cells that we can't even see with the naked eye.
Okay.
Being all connected from here, literally all the way down here. So that is highly myelinated.
Okay.
So.
And the non-myelinated part of the gray matter is because that allows for more connections.
Right.
And
More pliability.
It allows for those tiny dendritic connections between any two neurons to connect.
Okay.
That's where creativity comes from.
Right.
Like you connect things that weren't connected before.
Exactly.
Right. It's
Exactly.
hard to do that if they're insulated.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what we have is we kind of get into this situation where things happen neurally, and I don't know if anybody knows what a nanosecond is. Okay, we were in here and we did something for 30 seconds. Okay, just to give you a sense, a nanosecond is what takes, in 1 nanosecond, an electrical charge will travel about 8 inches of wire. So that's how fast these electrical currents are. So like you said before, I jumped before I knew what I was jumping about. Okay, so this is what we're capable of, but that's just part of the story. So we come in to a test, and what we're thinking about the topic maybe. Mm-hmm. We're thinking about past tests. We might be thinking about previous assignments in that particular course. We might be thinking about other things going on in our lives. And all of that contributes to where our overall arousal level is. And it's not the fun kind of arousal. It is a very basic physiological arousal. So we come into a situation where we have to write a paragraph or write write a response to a question. Very creative process. Pulls on memory, pulls on our gray matter to create, to put the words together, the grammar, the sentence structure, all that very prefrontal lobe stuff. But there's a catch with it. There's something of value on the line. We're going to literally win or lose something. I'm going to do well and get rewarded for it, or I'm not going to do well. And what do you think students think? When I don't do well, what happens to me?
A lot of students index their self-esteem to the grade point average.
Mm-hmm. So low grade is it a punishment?
It's a loss. It's a
A
negative
loss.
experience.
It's a negative, yeah. Yikes. They might even have thoughts like, if I don't do well, I'll lose my scholarship. If I don't do well, one of my parents is going to get angry with me, might pull me out of school.
I have to pay for the class.
I might have to pay for the class myself.
Or change majors.
Have to change majors.
Or get
Suspended
delayed.
from university?
Possible. So,
Or maybe this reinforces their fear that they're not as smart as they are. Fixed versus growth mindset, kind of.
yeah.
Now, change of major can be a change of career.
Oh yeah. Part of me, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder what we tell students or what they think. But I'm pretty sure that when they got out of high school, they were usually taught by a well-prepared teacher who at least had a bachelor's degree, maybe a master's. But they get to a place like UNF, and the odds that somebody with their doctorate, and certainly their master's, with a ton of experience is going to be their teacher. I mean, they go from being taught at this level to being taught at this level. And I don't think they have a full appreciation that Dr. So-and-so, is operating up here, and they're still kind of down here.
Well, they talk about it a lot, but they talk about it that the doctor doesn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a gap,
Right.
not that they have the gap.
One of the courses I took as a senior psychology major
Okay.
at my undergrad was a course called Thinking Psychologically, and it was taught by our most senior professor, Dr. Llewellyn Queener. I'll never forget him. And we, for 10 weeks, we sat in this class and we talked about what it meant to be thinking psychologically. I walked out of that class and not a clue of what he was talking about. Now I know what he's talking about. Now I have my doctorate. Now I know what he was trying to talk to us about. So I think the process can be very frustrating, really, for both sides. So back to what we were kind of getting at. All right, so the student comes in and physiologically they are activated, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And what's activated is not, it's primarily what they're thinking about the content, what's going on in the gray matter, but it's also this fight or flight process because there's so much on the line. I mean, the only person in the classroom that's not doing this is the person who's auditing. At some level, they care about their grade. It's important to them. And so since there's something on the line, they tend to have also activated this very primitive self-protection system. I say primitive because this system operates in reptiles. The crocodiles operate with this, and that's pretty primitive. And again, what happens is they can be prepared. They can study the material, they can read the material, they can practice them, they can copy it. They can do that with the material, but what happens is this highly myelinated system gets activated, and it's like sending out an EMP. You're flying around in your little helicopter, and that EMP comes through, and guess what happens to your electrical systems? They're completely disrupted. If if you can get on the ground without getting killed, you're great. Does everybody know what I mean by EMP?
Electromagnetic pulse.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you set off a nuclear weapon,
Okay.
it sends out this electrical pulse before anything gets to you, and if anything electrical is around you, it'll stop working. Very good. So the amygdala can send out one of these pulses, and it will disrupt, literally electrically disrupt the circuits that are occurring in the neocortex. It's like you're listening to Bach and someone with a bullhorn is right there in your ear all of a sudden. It's overstimulating. And that's kind of what we were trying to get at with some of these exercises. We created basically a false stimuli in your body. The heart rate went up. You didn't breathe normally. So, or your chest got tight. If my chest starts getting tight, I start to wonder. I'm a 54-year-old man. Are we talking about cardiac? What's going on here? So I start to entertain other thoughts. So the only way we can manage this is we got to slow things down. And we have to slow down what I tend to call sometimes the crocodile brain. So now, think of this as a process. So our thoughts and our behavior, what we do and what we feel, are always in this interactive cycle. So your thoughts can affect how you feel. Your feelings can affect how you think. Both of these affect what you do. And sometimes what you do affects how you feel and what you think. I go give blood. I feel good because I did a good thing for my community. So think of this cycle thing. So what happens is they start to feel some of this stuff. They feel the tightness. They feel the dizziness. The words jump around. Now, I watched her. That page did not move, but that was not her perception of that page, right? And what do we got to believe what we see, right? But in every case, it's somehow disconcerting. It's distracting minimally. And it's unfortunately distracting at the one point that they need to start producing all this data that somehow they put in their head. And it's new data, right? They're not taking this course for the fourth time, right? This is all new data. It is not well learned nor well practiced data. It is for the teacher, but it's not for them. So they're trying to recall the hardest data to recall. It's not like you asked them to ride their bike. So now in most cases, we're not talking about an anxiety disorder. Okay? A little public service announcement. Some of your students may come to you and say, I have a disorder, I have a disability, it's called test anxiety. Dr. Russell Dubberly of the DRC here at UNF will tell you, nope. Test anxiety is not a disability. It's test anxiety. I pull you out of the test, the anxiety goes away. The definition of a disability is I can change 1,000 things in your life and that dysfunction stays put. It's always there. That's why it's a disability. So don't let them goof you. Don't say, no. Don't even bother. Okay, test anxiety, not a disability.
Can I pause you there for a
Yeah,
minute?
sure.
I'm a new adjunct, so I've been coming to these classes as much as I can because I'm coming from business. And what if I get approached by a student who says, I suffer from test anxiety? My knee-jerk reaction would be to send them to DRC. Does the DRC have coaching or does it have classes, or does it have techniques that help them cope with it? Or are they just, do I have any places?
No, really. I mean,
to go
really, you
with
want to
that?
be sending them to the counseling center to start with.
Okay,
You send them to my office.
to the counseling center?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just didn't know where to go from here.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more
okay.
about that.
If you're gonna get to it later, then get to it later, but I'm
Okay.
curious to distinguish between, is this just, as you call it, test anxiety? Or is it more failure anxiety? Is that a subset, that part of it? Because I can see sometimes there's a difference with some of the students who come to me claiming test anxiety. And it's really a function of they failed the first exam and they went in underprepared, et cetera, et cetera. They're just afraid they're gonna do it again. And they get into the hyperventilation mode and they say, well, this is an issue I often have. I'm going like, well, you didn't do any work for the first exam. You're just really afraid you're gonna go in underprepared for the next. Is there a distinction, or is it really just the same?
I don't think there's a distinction. I mean, they're using past experience to make a decision about the current present, which is standard operating procedure. I mean, we all do that. You know, when you started talking about a distinction, making a distinction, that's why it's kind of important for them to talk to somebody like me, because they could be experiencing anxiety during the test, but it could be coming from somewhere else. And I would challenge the student and say, how did you get here without being relatively successful in tests? You got accepted to UNF. So you must have passed some test somewhere, sometime. So, you know, you can't tell me you have test anxiety because you've passed enough tests to get here.
Yeah, and I've had students that are anxious about all kinds of social issues, like, oh, my grandmother was just put in the hospital, and so I'm having difficulty thinking, concentrating on my exam, not because I feel unprepared, but because I'm worried about my grandmother who's just went into the hospital. I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm trying to concentrate on my exam, but I'm thinking about, I'm in that fight or flight mode for something else, completely unrelated to the exam.
And that,
so it's still anxiety. It's still having an effect on their concentration,
right,
but it's not specific to the
testing
performance.
situation.
Yeah, it's not the performance on the exam that's making them nervous,
Right.
or producing that.
So there can be mitigating circumstances. And in situations like that, I encourage them to meet with I don't know if y'all are familiar with the ombudsperson. Andrea Adams Manning, she's in the Dean of Students office, and she is the person on campus that helps every student, if they so choose, to negotiate this bureaucracy that is, you know, state, university, higher ed.
She's great.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good to know.
So if there's mitigating circumstances, and some of the stuff we can plan for and some of it we can't. My experience is most professors will say something to the effect, do what you can do, we'll discuss it later, or, you know, everybody gets to drop their lowest grade, so call this a mulligan, you know? And some, I know y'all work very hard and you create a syllabus that's precise and accurate, but as you know, and I know, they don't always read it. And sometimes you will literally read from your syllabus and they go, oh, okay, that's better. Yes, it is better. That's why I wrote it down. Hopefully you'll read it. Okay, so really the key to this is how do we get the student to deal specifically with the physiological arousal that comes with anxiety, okay? So we know that our bodies react physiologically the same way to a threat as to anything that moves us about rapidly. So, for example, I got on a roller coaster at SeaWorld last year with my 13-year-old daughter. Okay? Now, I am cool and calm and collected at all times, right? I supervise a staff of 20 people here at the counseling center. I literally talk to people who want to kill themselves on a fairly regular basis. I'm not easily flappable. But if you put me on the manta, I'm a little freaked out. And it's because that's what our bodies do. So what I've got down here is, what can we do about it? So there's a couple of very easy things that I want people to hopefully commit to memory, and they're pretty easy stuff. Okay? Physiologically, we are built around our cardiovascular system, okay? Nothing happens unless our heart and lungs are working. That's why when you go into a hospital, that's what they're interested in first. Are you breathing? And is your heart beating? Because if those two things aren't happening, that's what we're fixing first. I don't care what's going on with your legs, your arms, even your head. If half your head is missing, they will still start with your heart and your lungs. Because, you might have enough brain tissue left. You might. Either way, you'll be a good donor. So, we start there. So, okay. The simplest. Diaphragmatic breathing. We use our diaphragms to make our lungs bigger, and it pulls oxygen in. And then we use our diaphragms to make our lungs smaller, and it pushes the air out. Literally, by inhaling deeply and letting it go, we are taking cognitive control, prefrontal lobe control over a system that is ordinarily monitored and run by something back here, something literally in the brain stem. Okay? It's a very different kind of sensation. So, if you will join me, you want to take a full and deep breath through your nose usually, or your mouth, depending if you have a head cold, and you the difference is Dan said it. I was shaking my head, and then I realized I stopped breathing.
Yeah.
What did you do in here?
One of these first
things.
Okay.
So Dan shook his head for 30 seconds. 30 seconds, half a minute. He did this. And he didn't do it that hard.
He didn't.
It was like a gentle, like he was telling, the dean, no, I'm not going to do it. So, but he forgot to breathe. He forgot to do literally the most basic thing to life. That's a problem. If you're not breathing, things are going to stop working. It is very likely that people kind of forget to breathe. So, what I encourage people to do, and sometimes they can do it even more forcefully, I really encourage people to forcefully inhale and exhale. I am taking over. I am taking control of my breathing. In that moment, I am in control of my breathing. And the beautiful thing about controlling your breathing is the rest of your body has to follow. Just like an internal combustion engine, you can have plenty of gas, you can have a great engine, you can have 8 cylinders, but if you don't have any oxygen, you're not going anywhere. And that's kind of what happens. When you control your breathing, you start to control your heart rate. When you control your heart rate, everything else has got to slow down. So that basic diaphragmatic breathing, sniper's breathing. This is kind of my favorite, especially if you got somebody who kind of likes the idea of squeezing off a shot and tagging your target at 1,000 yards. A sniper's breath is very basic. I inhale, I hold it for 2-3 seconds. I exhale, I hold that. I don't inhale randomly. A couple of seconds, and then I inhale. So if you imagine kind of a box. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold, inhale. It comes from people who are on rifle teams, and they're trying to squeeze that shot between heartbeats. So when they squeeze the trigger, their lungs can't be moving, and ideally they're catching the heart between beats when they squeeze that trigger. So when your body is motionless, the gun is motionless. When the gun is motionless, it goes where you pointed it. That's why cops will tell you, even if they go to the range, in those scenarios where they have to use their weapon, they're firing all shots because they know that 4 out of the 5 shots are not going to where they want them to go. It's incredibly difficult to discharge a firearm in a scenario where your life is threatened, even when you are trained to do it and practice doing it. So if cops who go to the academy, cops who go to the firing range can't do it, it's going to be pretty hard for us to do it too. So that's another thing to practice. The other one is 2-to-1 breathing. So inhale on 1, exhale on 2. I take twice as long to exhale than inhale. If you get good at this, you'll inhale on a count of 2 and exhale on a count of 4. And I encourage people to move up. When you get comfortable with 2 to 4, go to 3 to 6. When you get comfortable with 3 to 6, go to 4 to 8. Get up to 5 and 10. If you can get up where you're inhaling slowly, smoothly on 5, on a count of 5, and then exhaling on a count of 10, you are really in control of your breathing. Anybody do yoga in here? What do they talk to you about?
Very much.
Yeah. All right. You are controlling things, and that gives us a sense of control. I learned very early in my career, when I got called out to do something, I had to manage my breathing because I don't know what I'm walking into. Usually the information is pretty sketchy. So I'm minimally doing that. So these are 3 very basic exercises that I'd love for you to keep in your head and then encourage in your students. They're simple to remember. You don't have to do a lot of preparation. I literally cannot think of anyone who couldn't do it. I mean, the only people who aren't doing it are the people who are on respirators in hospitals. So, I mean, there's no disability that keeps a person from doing this. So, one of the things that I would love to see people do is use good old-fashioned classic conditioning. Here, welcome to class. We're going to start the class with a very basic exercise. You don't even have to tell them why you're doing it. You just say, I want everybody to breathe with me. And make them do it. If you have to give them a point credit, then do it. But the idea is maybe once a class, you do it maybe in the beginning of the class, maybe in the middle of the class, maybe towards the end. But you start to pair them breathing in class, in your class, so that it becomes an expectation. After you get them doing it for, hopefully a few weeks, kind of depends, if you have a, Tuesday, Thursday class or your Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. You might say, I'm preparing you for the test. I'm going to talk about the topic today, but I'm also preparing you for the test. And they don't nearly need to know why they're doing it. You might get some questions. I'm a big fan, again, with stretching. And a lot of times I'll, when I do this with RAs, I'll get them up off their seats. I'll get them up off their seats. I'll get them off their seats. And then I just ask them very basically, just move your head around a little bit. Just gently. To the degree it feels good, bend your torso a bit. You might even hang over. I can feel my vertebra popping as I do this. Just a very gentle stretch. Some gentle twisting. And you're going to find, some people put a mark on them. They need more breathing. They're going to need something. Sometimes I tell the RAs, stick your hands out. You got all this space. This is all yours for you to control. I think when people are asked to perform, they're going to have those standard physiological symptoms. Their fingers are going to get a little cold, maybe clammy. Why? Because capillary constriction. If you can get them to move a little bit, you're asking for the blood flow to return back to that system. Mm-hmm. The true biology of it is there are two opposing nervous systems in play, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Mm-hmm. When they walk into that test, you bet your bottom dollar the sympathetic nervous system is in charge, and you need to get it off. Because once you get the parasympathetic nervous system running, it keeps the other one off. You can talk to them about you're going to remember the information you stuck in your head better if you can have a calm body. So
this is something we could do before the test. Like you said, maybe better to do it routinely in the classroom so students they associate it with the classroom. But I could imagine like midway through the test, okay, everybody just stand up, stretch out, just relax, get your composure back, and you can sit down and you can focus and finish the exam.
Right.
I teach a lot of evening classes, and my students come in harried. They've just come out of traffic, beating down the hall, and it's almost like a victory they made it to the chair. It's like, right? And they're just like, you can't just, their brain is not ready to receive. They're still frazzled. So I can very much see just kind of getting them into the zone.
Yeah. And that's classic. I come up 295 every day to work. Thank God I have a 2,000-pound shield of armor around me because I can drive perfectly, but one person has to make one mistake and we are all going to die. Right? We go home. How many? Do you go more than a week before you see at least one fender bender? I don't. The other day I went home. There was a pickup truck upside down, literally upside down. I'm going like, how do you do that? We're all doing 30 miles an hour.
He wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't. He got airborne somehow. Right. So we talked about what else we can kind of do. Part of dealing with test anxiety is getting ahead of the curve. I don't think a lot of professors do this. I think we all get very focused on, I've got content to cover. But my guess is you will cover the content. And not only that, actual learning will occur, which is really the goal.
Right.
I challenge my very bright daughter, you know, she goes, "Oh, I got all A's." Yeah, but did you learn anything? When she tells me I don't need to prepare for tests, or I get one of my clients come in, "Well, I didn't have to study in high school." God, you're going to die. Because I guarantee you, Dr. Smith, he's going to test you. So they really need to be prepared. And so one of the things that we're trying to do in the Counseling Center is we're trying to use social media. So number one, I'm going to ask each and every one of you to like us on Facebook if you're on Facebook. If you're on Twitter, like us on Twitter. If you do Pinterest, we have a Pinterest account. We actually even have a couple of YouTube videos explaining our services. We have a what is counseling embedded in our home web page. So literally, what is counseling? Most people think it's me telling them what to do. That's not what it is. It's not academic advising. It's not a doctor, telling you, here, take this pill. It's none of that. So I encourage you to do that, but then I would also ask you to tell your students, because in the sea of unholy crud that is out on social media today, this is a positive note. These are positive messages. There are online screenings. There are a variety of short articles where we're trying to get the more positive message out there. So it can be a helpful reminder. Okay, on our web page, Dan, could you bring our web page up?
Yep.
And this, if you might even ask at the beginning of your classes, or even now, if any of you have, I wouldn't use the word test anxiety, I might say, if any of you struggle on test day, I want to show you something. So on our Counseling-Center webpage, we have all these different icons. One of the icons is for phone apps. So most of you, if not all of you, have a smartphone.
What's the address?
Counseling-Center. No, you got it. Yeah, finish. SELING-center. Yeah. Oh.
There's a / between the EDU and the council.
Well, you have to get rid of the W. It's not WR, it's just R. Backspace twice. Hit R. There you go. Okay, scroll down. A little further. Keep going. There you go. Apps. So on this are free downloadable phone apps for both iPhone and what I got. Android, thank you. So they can literally download this and use their phone throughout the day or other anxiety-provoking situations. If you got to talk to the old man about why there's a dent in the car, do this first.
Which one do you recommend for talking to the old man about the dent in the car?
Probably the tactical breather.
Okay.
But there's gratitude journals, mindfulness and meditation. There's a variety of things. There's even
Oh yeah.
mindfulness,
Mood tracking.
mood tracking, sleep apps. If you have a hard time falling asleep the night before a test, do the 2-to-1 breathing, get up to inhaling on 5, exhaling on 10, or use one of these sleep apps. Because we all know 8 hours of rest prior to a test is at the last moment, that's the best preparation. So even we have a personal safety app too, just in case. Sometimes that gives people a sense of control. So we're trying to use technology that the students are already using to communicate how they can improve their lives. The other thing, I like to show people. Let's see. Faculty and staff resource. This is especially written for you. This is a series of brief pages on a variety of topics. Some very general ones, responding to students in distress or crisis. How do you respond when they're asking for professional help? Being observant, which maybe other people do, but then there's some other areas. Depression, the student's demanding, they say they're suicidal. You think they're violent, they're disoriented. They start talking about eating disorders, substance abuse, being victims of sexual violence, harassment, hazing. So there's a bunch of stuff that I have. It's not, it's not some long article. It's about, this is what it looks like. This is what you can do about it. Because one of the things that has been very clear since Virginia Tech is the faculty and the staff see a bunch of stuff. And I think when FERPA came out, it scared the bejesus out of people. And so they didn't talk about their students. But then Virginia Tech taught us, yeah, that's not really what we want you to do. So it is better for you to call someone up like me or call the dean of students and tell us what you saw or tell us what you're struggling with and let us manage it.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that I encourage faculty and staff to be aware of. So other things we hope to look at is, are the students engaging in some level of realistic but positive self-talk? What are they saying to themselves? And I think it's worth a question in your class. Not necessarily how do you think you'll do, but can you give me one kind of positive, yeah, I can pass this test. Maybe I won't get an A, but I can pass this test. I really want them thinking, I got out of high school. I cannot be a complete dummy. I can't be. You might even say, did you ever take the ACTs or the ACTs? What'd you get? As long as they didn't get like a 13, they can do it. It's just hard work. It's not about, is the brain that you got the wrong hardware? It's not about that. It's about what kind of software are you putting into that tissue. And yeah, if you're stoned, it's not going to work so well. You're right. But if you're also thinking negatively, if you're saying to yourself when you walk in, I can't do this. Yep, you're right. You can't. So we encourage some kind of positive self-talk. Something else you can do in class. If you get tired with breathing, you can do what we call PMR, progressive muscle relaxation. Very easy to do. It's easy to do sitting. So just sitting, usually you start with your feet and you just curl your toes or you tighten up your feet somehow and you let it go. Tighten up your calves and let it go. Tighten up your thighs and let it go. I've had, and you can even speed it up. So if you're sitting, you can just tighten up both legs. Hold it 10, 20. It doesn't take long. Just like it didn't take more than 30 seconds to get feeling cruddy, it doesn't take that long to feel better. You tense up, you let it go. What happens? Blood flow goes back down, right? You can tighten up your abdomen That's usually tighten up your arms. Real easy. Tighten up your. Some people that make a face. But just that squeeze, release. Squeeze, release. I'm in control of my body. I can't control what's on the test, but I control what's going on in here. And if I control this, then my performance on that will be better. So PMR, you can do that in class. You can leave, in the time I've explained it, you can do it. And they might think it's weird, especially if you're teaching something that doesn't seem terribly related. But maybe you can relate it. You know your topics. All right. Okay. Also at our counseling center, we have the Relaxation Room. Where do we stick it? There it is. That's actually a picture of it. It's a very quiet, plush environment. We have a computer that sits on this desk here. Oh, cool. Didn't know that. Where they can do a biofeedback program. They have a little thing that fits in their hand, looks like a little computer mouse, but it's connected to the computer and it measures galvanic skin response. And the goal is to make the little thing go down so they can kind of teach themselves. But we got music and meditative things. This is one of those lounge chairs, so they can get completely horizontal if they want. All you have to do is show up with their ID and they can check in. You can reserve it by phone. We're trying to get the buzz going about it, so we've opened it up, not just to students, but faculty and staff as well. So that's one of our little things. Students do not have to be a client of the center to use it. So other couple of things we're doing. We realize that at the counseling center, we have wait times, unfortunately. Right now, if someone wants an individual therapist, begin individual counseling, it's 3 weeks before I can get them in. Now, on the other hand, unless you got big bucks, that's still a better wait time than the community. So we also do triages. So at any point in time, one of my therapists is at their desk doing paperwork, but they're on call. So if a student walks in, I got somebody to see them. We also are doing an open art therapy studio. So we've been offering it at every other week. After spring break, we're offering it every Wednesday at 1:30. They don't even have to come in. We don't care who they are. If they walk in, we open up our conference room door to the hall. We have a little sign out there. They literally walk in, they do the art, they walk out. I'm not collecting names. I'm not doing any of that. We also have Sense, which is a mindfulness practice. It's Mondays at 10. Again, they don't have to be clients. They aren't clients, but they can come in and do the mindfulness Mondays at 10.
That's every Monday?
Every Monday. We'll reevaluate during the summer when, our census for everybody just kind of drops. But my expectation is we will continue with these open groups. We've had a lot of success with the art therapy. We do also have closed groups that usually begin in the beginning of the semester and go throughout the whole semester. I want you to, if you can tell the students about that, I think that's going to be very helpful. Probably the last thing, and I didn't put this on there, I should have. The counseling center has a after hours service. So we're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. But at 5 o'clock, we're tired, we're going home. But if anybody calls our phone number and they wait for the voicemail because we're not there, it'll tell them to hit button number 2. And then they're connected to, it's a service called Protocol, but basically it is a live licensed therapist somewhere in the continental United States.
Okay.
And they can talk to that therapist until the heart's content.
Good to know.
That therapist then writes up the note and sends us an email about what happened.
Is your number 620-2602?
My number
How helpful.
is on my stress ball. Now this is a deal.
Your stress brain.
Okay.
This is the deal I'm giving you. This is paid for by student fee funds. Not you people. Y'all are the source of stress. This is student fee money.
And we do it well.
So the deal is, if you have a student and they need help, you give them that.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
and I'll get you another one
Okay.
because I want you to give it to a student.
Where are you physically located on the campus?
Building 2, second floor, room
Okay.
2300.
That's not helpful.
That's not helpful. Tell me one building you know.
15, College of Computing, also Coggin College of Business.
Okay.
Either one.
We're between there.
You're between the two.
Yeah.
It's actually right up here. Yeah.
Where are you relative to this building?
This way.
That way. Or
If you walk through Peace Plaza,
Yes.
we're the next building past Peace Plaza.
Okay.
From here.
Yeah.
So
from
that's
here.
building 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was at NLK at Gandhi.
Right. If you're there with MLK and Gandhi, you're near us.
Okay.
So, we're
Yeah,
my little
I had
bag.
a student near tears
Mhm.
and really wasn't sure what my options were. So it would be good to know if I had had this in my bag, I could have handed it to her.
Yeah.
I've walked a student over
got
to the
options.
counseling center before, because I knew they wouldn't walk over there by themselves.
Right. She probably wouldn't have if I had just handed it, but I'm leaving here, I'm gonna go see if I can find my way to your place, so I would physically know where it's at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've given us some good suggestions here. These are things that we can just tell students. Okay, Monday at 10, right? Wednesday at 1:30. You can talk to someone. Make an appointment or.
Right. If they can get on our webpage and explore our webpage, they can find out. Unfortunately, so many of our students got forced into counseling by some well-meaning parent when they were 16, and then because of confidentiality and how that's written, they don't have it. So the therapist tells the parent what's going on, and then the student feels betrayed, and so they got that model in their head. But with us, if you're 18 and they come to us, it's in the vault.
Right.
So helping them understand confidentiality, helping them understand what counseling really is. It's not pill pushing. It's not me telling you what to do. Helping them understand group therapy, that process. Some schools are to the point where they got so many students come in, they say, you can come into group counseling or you can wait. Take your pick. So you got a bunch of reluctant people in group counseling, which isn't really good. The better model is we start counseling if it's unfamiliar to you individually. You go, okay, now I get it. Now I know what to do. Then I get them to group counseling.
You said you have a group therapy room?
Actually, I have 4 of them.
So here's just an idea, wild idea. If I have an exam scheduled at a particular time, and I know students tend to stress out about the exam, could I schedule a group relaxation session, sort of like the Sense, but schedule it like right before the exam? Before that group of
Like in your
students?
classroom?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so much more credibility coming from someone coming in and facilitating it
Mhm.
than me standing up. Because if I haven't conditioned them from the beginning, which I haven't this semester at all, right?
Mhm.
But say next semester I'm pre-midterm and pre-final, someone comes in and says, okay, I just need 5 minutes of your time.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn off this section of your brain and start this section of your brain going.
That's entirely possible.
Okay.
When you're planning for next semester,
Okay.
that's when I would
Schedule.
get me or somebody in our office on the phone and say, can I schedule you to come in at this time at this place to do this thing
For 5 minutes. Yeah.
for 5-10 minutes? We're happy to do that. The only downside is if you wait too long, the response you're going to get is, we have to see clients. They're waiting 3 weeks to get in. I can't come to your class because I'm booked.
Can I book you for finals? Is nobody far enough in advance to do finals this semester?
Finals are tough.
Okay.
One more thing I wanted to tell you about our service. Some of these students are so worried that they're going to get carted away to the hospital by 2 men in white coats and a straitjacket. This is where you say, listen, you need some help, and I can't be the person to help you. But you can call, wait until it's closed. Wait until 5 o'clock. Call their number. Hit number 2. You're connected to the live therapist, like I told you. Bear in mind, you call the counseling center. The call is transferred to them. They don't know your phone number. All protocol knows is it comes from UNF. That's one of our clients. We're going to talk to whoever's on the phone. So if someone chooses to not reveal their name or make up a name, there's no way we know who they are. They can be completely anonymous.
Okay.
And sometimes that gives students, there are students out there, for one reason or another, they're concerned that someone's going to find out. And the person they're talking to is probably somewhere in Washington State, to be honest. They have like 3 call centers, and they're mostly on the west side of the continent. And they also know well enough, if the situation is escalating and the student starts talking about harming themselves or harming somebody else, they know how to contact our police and escalate response. So it's a pretty safe system. But I encourage them, even if they don't want to come in, because they don't want a record, they can still get some help.
Okay.
And if they're awake at 4 a.m., a night before test,
Thank you.
get on the phone. You're awake, you might as well. Worst case scenario, you'll fall asleep talking to the person.
So that's 24/7
They're on when we're off.
when you're not.
Otherwise, if they call us Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, we're going to answer our phone. And that's where our triage system kicks in. Downside to that is sometimes more than one person walks in at a time. But if you walk somebody in, it's going to be hopefully a brief wait before they're seen. And they can bring you with them. They can say, thanks for the ride, see ya, whatever they're comfortable with.
Yeah, I've run across students just on campus, and they're just, emotionally distraught. They're just sitting there crying and just are really going through something in that moment. And it's easy just to say, hey, let's go talk to somebody. Let's help resolve this right now.
Mhm.
Instead of saying, looks like you're having a hard day. Talk to you later.
Or give them our phone number.
Mhm.
Okay.
So there, again, if they can get to us,
Here, I'll put that.
yeah. If they can get to us electronically, can I make it go back?
Yes, yes, you can.
Cool. If we can, this is the after hours support. Wait for the voice prompt and select 2. If we can get them connected to us somehow electronically, just open. Just open it. I just want to see it. Thank you. So, I mean, you can say, see, we don't have two heads. We look like normal people. You know, you can even learn a little bit about us. You know, regular folks, kind of a variety, young and old. Got really good looking guys working there. So we try to say, you know, we got a little young, got a little old, got male, got female, got a variety. Got people who've been experienced. This is our art therapist, so she's doing the art therapy groups. Hopefully we'll expand it. We actually have 5 counselors in training who are finishing their master's degree and are working on our, as interns with us, under supervision, of course, by licensed therapists. Okay. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Appreciate that.